All right, welcome into Before Floor and Essential to 5 on the Floor and the 5 Reasons Sports Network. Thank you for joining us. We're sponsored, as always, by our friends over at Biscayne Bay Brewing. Check out the Pastime Pilsner, the Tropical Bay IPA, the Marlins Lager, and all the other great beers at Biscayne Bay Brewing. You get them at your local supermarket, your Publix, your Winn-Dixie, your Whole Foods. You can also get it at our friend the restaurant we go to all the time, Quarter Deck. They serve it there. They've got it just about everywhere. They also have it at the arena at the 100 level and the 300 level. So there you see, there's one of the kiosks there. So say hello to them. Tell them 5 Reasons sent you. They're the official beer of the 5 Reasons Sports Network and also of the Miami Marlins. Also sponsored by our friend Mark Brown. Go to Mark Brown, M-A-R-C, brownpa.com. He can help you build a better future. He can give you the estate plan that you need if you're young with a family. Certainly that's something that you're going to want to do. Make sure that everything that you've put together in your life goes to the right person if something is to happen to you. We know these are uncertain times. 954-566 5678, 954-566-5678. He's also got a title company there in-house. So if you got any real estate issues, I can tell you that he is an expert in that, and his staff is very helpful. Small office right there in North Lauderdale, just north of Cypress Creek off of Andrews. So reach out to Mark Brown. You may even run into him at a Heat game. Here's what we got today. Next to me, Ricky J. Mark. You can follow him, of course, at Ricky J. Mark. We got Brady Hawk. You can follow him at Brady Hawk 305. Our producer, Alejandro Villegas. You can follow him at Alejandro VG32. And Jonathan Ramlicon, you can follow at 3Piece Combo. No Greg Sylvander yet, although he may be joining us at some point here during the program. Let's get to it, Brady. You are at the arena tonight. The Heat are ravaged enough that they don't even have John Crotty tonight. He has a COVID situation, so he will not be broadcasting tonight. Sorry, I meant to throw that in. We hope everything is okay with him. And also, Jason Jackson just got back. And, of course, Caleb Martin comes back. Udonis Haslem and Kyle Lowry are now in the protocols. Who else is in and out tonight?
Yeah, you mentioned the main one, Udonis Haslem. We wouldn't think that would be a main one any point before this point in the season, but obviously right now it is a big deal because you look at tonight, no PJ Tucker was just the update, which is actually a big one because if you look at tonight's big man rotation, it's Omer Yurtseven, Casey Okpala, and that's it. And Casey Okpala essentially isn't a center. Caleb Martin got some 5 minutes at the 5 last game. I expect them again. KZ will have to get minutes at the 5. But no PJ Tucker is bigger than we would have thought just because of the lack of bigs that they have. Jimmy Butler can be able to defensively a lot more switching. Offensively, they actually have a base, at least with Jimmy, so obviously that changes some things. But overall, the Wizards don't have many guys either, so it's a winnable game either way.
Yeah, all right. So before we go to Ricky on this and Jonathan, the Wizards, who's in and who's out for them? Because Beal was questionable, was he not?
Yeah, Beal's out.
Okay. So that's a big one. Okay, and their bigs other than Daniel Gafford, who do they have?
That was the big thing because I saw the guy that came in. He just flew in Elise Johnson. It was because they have a lack of so many bigs. I think. I don't even know. They have I think 8 available guys, and one of them is Elise Johnson. So it's going to be a very low group of guys.
All right. The PJ Tucker thing's a little surprising to me because typically when the Heat list somebody as questionable a couple straight games, you see him in the next game. And I saw him warming up. He looked fine in the last game. So does Markieff Morris, by the way. Ricky, to you on this. Again, we've talked about playing shorthanded and getting through this stretch. This is one of the few teams they actually play during this stretch that has a reasonably good record, though. I mean, and they are in the division, even though they're behind the Heat right now. But they don't have Beal. I don't really know where they go tonight, right? So as much as we're sort of stressing about the Heat's absences, the Wizards' absences are significant as well.
No, you're right. But here's the thing. I think this Wizards team has shown that whether or not guys are available or not, they can still be a threat to this Heat team if they're not careful. I mean, Miami, this is a similar Miami team to the Miami team that pretty much had the game won and then gave it up in the last 3 to 4 minutes. This could, I don't want to constantly use the term trap game because a lot of these games fit that description in terms of how they could sneak up on Miami and win and steal a game that they shouldn't otherwise take. But Miami needs to be focused tonight. They need to be focused. They need to learn from the mistakes that they made in their last meeting when they lost that game and just keep moving, honestly, at this point. I mean, I know that Miami is also missing a few guys tonight that Brady mentioned, but at this point, it's just a matter of going in there, doing what they're supposed to, and exerting their superiority on an otherwise inferior Washington Wizards team, which will eventually probably slide down into the play-in part of the standings at some point this season where I believe they will stay.
Yeah, I think, Ricky, you and I have been aligned on that Washington's fast start was probably not sustainable, particularly with the way that the conference has played out. Jonathan, is it this simple tonight the Heat have Butler and Herro, and the Wizards don't, because when I mean that's kind of where we're at right now, isn't it? Like it's you're not expecting complete teams. It's like, okay, who has more top level players? Miami has at least 2, right? Or they should. I mean, Tyler Herro averages 27 on Tuesdays. So is it that simple?
Yeah, the Heat have the better guys, right? In a game like this where there's just so much unstableness, of course you're gonna have guys, have quick spurts, get hot, things like that. But for over a period of a whole game, you're gonna need those guys like Jimmy Butler, Tyler Herro to step up. Even Max Strus, Gabe Vincent taking over in that playmaking role behind Kyle Lowry with him being out. So I think that we're gonna have to get big minutes from those guys. I think KZ is gonna have to step up as well. But ultimately, it's going to be on the shoulders of Tyler Herro and Jimmy Butler, right? When the game starts getting maybe a little, rattly, that's when Jimmy Butler is going to have to get to the free throw line, slow things down, let this team settle. And I think that's what's going to control this game is that we're going to control the pace. We're going to control the game. If we start turning over the ball, start making lax defense, you know what I mean? We're not going to win this game. So I think it's, like you said, it's going to be on the shoulders of those two guys.
Brady, Yurtseven, the ball finds him. We've discussed this. He can be a little clunky at times, but the skill level is there. We saw that in Summer League. He seems to be getting more confidence the more minutes that he gets. And he's using his body better, which has been attributed in some ways to Haslam. But, how many minutes can you reasonably expect him to play tonight? Like I said, they don't have anybody else but KZ, unless they're going to go with the Jimmy or Caleb at the 5 thing like they did the other night. 30 minutes? 35 minutes? Like, what can he play?
I would say around 30, like 30 to 32 would be my guess. I would think this was like one of the first games in a very long time that Miami's going to probably switch a majority of their minutes because we have not seen that in a very long time. They have to go drop with when Dedmon stepped in. Now Omer steps in, they go drop. It feels like we're going to see a lot of switching if they go to those KZ at the 5, Caleb at the 5, even Strus at the 5. I would not be surprised if they pulled that out either. But it is Omer and Gafford are seem like the only matchup, the true bigs that are going to be matched up. It just seems like they're going to be mirrored all night. And I don't think you're uncomfortable with that matchup, with the way Omer's been playing, just getting positioned down low. I think last game he knew his role, and he wasn't scared to shoot it. It felt like the games before it, he was like, it was the only times he shot it was when he was basically forced to do so. And it was the last option. Last game he was searching for that. I feel like this is another one coming in when he knows he's the only true big. He's going to be looking for his shot down low, and I just feel like maybe we see a 3 pop out a couple times in this one. Like we have not seen that, and Jimmy talked about you can't pop until you perfect the role in a game like this where you have to slowly roll with a guy like Jimmy in a pick and roll. But this feels like a game where it goes down the line. Maybe in the third quarter, you start to pop a little bit more. Maybe you can open up the offense.
Ricky, taking a look at some of the young guys who have popped, so to speak, during this stretch. Caleb Martin, Gabe Vincent, Max Strus, Omer Yurtseven. I think those would be the 4 primary ones. Obviously, Omer's sample size is a little smaller than the other 3, but Caleb missed some time too. Who has encouraged you the most of those 4?
Believe it or not, and this is not trying to be out of the box, but did you mention Gabe Vincent?
I did, yes.
Okay, then it's not out of the box then. Honestly, Gabe Vincent, I've seen some things out of Gabe Vincent, not to take too much from Gad over in postgame, but I've seen some things out of Gabe Vincent that have been very encouraging. There's something to be said about the confidence that he's been demonstrating and exhibiting out there on the floor. This is not the same Gabe Vincent that was tearing up the Philadelphia 76ers last season. This seems to be a brand new player that could very well force Eric Spoelstra to make him Kyle Lowry's backup, if not an occasional running mate in the backcourt. There's something to be said about the way he attacks the basket now with no fear, the way he shoots, the way he's been shooting the ball lately in a way that has allowed everybody else to open up their play. I mean, enough can be said about Tyler Herro and Max Strus, a personal favorite of mine, but Gabe Vincent has really been special, and I don't think enough is being said about his play thus far, especially in the last few weeks.
Yeah, and it's not just the shooting. That's the thing. It's his ability, and we knew about the defense. The shooting, he's talked about how the shot, he's had to transform that shot a little bit. But to me, it's the running of offense that has been the progression there. He looks like a point guard more than he did, and I feel like that has changed the equation. All right, before we go to the picks here, Jonathan, I want to throw a question at you because this is something we may discuss on the postgame tonight over on 5 on the Floor. Tyler Herro, if you could say, put him in contention for one, which is the one of these things you would like to see him get the most? Because I think he's in contention for all 3 of these things right now. 6th man of the year, most improved player, all-star berth. Which is the one, if you could pick one that you think would be most sort of, would certify him the most, which of those is it?
I think All-Star would have to be that one, right? That one, that's the label that once you get that first All-Star bid, you become an elite level player, right? You become a top tier player and you separate yourself from the pack. And him doing this on the contract that he is, it kind of probably makes Miami a little bit more comfortable with any extensions with him moving forward now that he's going to have that All-Star bid under his name. So I think most improved is probably one of the, or, six man is probably the lock for him out of all of them. Most improved would be nice because it would show the growth that he had from an actual offseason compared to the last 2 years before. So I think those two are good, but I think the one that would solidify him the most would be that All-Star bid because it would put him under elite level. And we remember what it did for Bam, right? When he went in that locker room and he experienced being around all the high-level players, that takes your confidence on another level. So for a guy that's already confident, that would just help him a little bit more. I think that All-Star bid is a thing for him.
I actually think in terms of likelihood, it's probably six man of the year, all-star berth, and then most improved. It feels like the most improved category. It's always hard to gauge, and there's Jordan Poole. There's some other names out there right now that are attracting a little bit of attention. All right, let's get to it. Again, thanks to our sponsors, Biscayne Bay Brewing, markbrownpa.com. Make sure you check out Pace and Spaces at halftime. Also, post-game, post-up 5R, as usual, sponsored by Aggressive Insurance. And also, 5 on the floor tonight. Sponsored by Water Cleanup Florida and many others. And prizepicks.com, use the code 5. But let's get to the Mark Brown PA predictions. Ricky, I will start with you tonight.
Yeah, I think I have the Heat winning tonight. I don't want to say comfortably because, like I said before, the Wizards are, for some reason, unbeknownst to me or even science, they're a threat. Miami needs to be careful. I have them winning, but if they're not careful, we could see a repeat of the previous loss. But at this point, Miami's got Jimmy back. The role players are rounding into form in a way that I didn't expect this quickly in the season. It should be a Miami win given the rhythm that the guys have been working themselves into.
Brady?
Yeah, I would say it's a comfortable win in my opinion. I think this is one of those games. You look back to last game, Jimmy got the ball up a ton. He was firing, but he wasn't the most efficient when he came out. Like, he was getting the whistle. He was doing everything. This feels like a game where he has about 23, close to a triple-double. Like, I think that second game you come back, Ethan, you mentioned before that the first game he comes back after an absence, he plays well. I don't think that was his best game last game. I think he comes back in this one, and I think Miami wins comfortably.
Jonathan?
Yep, I'm right there with you. I think, like you said, Miami has the better players. I think Spencer Dinwiddie and Kyle Kuzma might be the best two players on the Wizards right now. So I'm taking Jimmy Butler and Tyler Herro way over that. On top of that, the guys outside of them, the Gabe Vincents, the Max Strus, the Caleb Martins, who's continuing to play awesome, and then Omer Yurtseven as well. Those guys are only going to continue to transition playing with Jimmy a little bit better because they've had that time playing with Kyle. I think now they'll transition a little bit better in the second game, play with Jimmy a little bit better. Like Brady said, probably get close to a triple-double, dominate the game, and we get the win.
I got Tyler getting 30 tonight. I feel like coming off the 2-point game, getting ejected, I felt like he was trying to be Kyle Lowry a little too much in the last game. He didn't really look for his offense, and then when he did, he kind of was out of sorts, and then, of course, had the situation, which I thought was kind of a ridiculous ejection. I'm going with the Heat winning by 10 to 12 tonight. I think Tyler has a big game tonight. He is not really we've seen, over the course of his career, particularly at home, he doesn't really follow a sort of a low-scoring game with another, and I anticipate that he and Jimmy playing off each other tonight will be the difference. The bigs worry me a little bit, but again, Washington can't really exploit it that much. Dinwiddie's a good player, as you know, and Kuzma is better than he's given credit for. But I'm going to go with the Heat tonight to win comfortably. Go to prizepicks.com, use the code 5. I'm going to go look right now to see what Tyler's number is, and I'm going to play that one over. Sean Rochester mentioning there, join Pace and Space tonight. Biscayne Bay Brew is hosting, and they're giving away a 15-strong card. I may apply. I had 100 of those, and I can't find any of them. And they were all champagne soaked, so that just sucks. But anyway, thanks to Alejandro for producing. Pace and Space at halftime. Thanks to Ricky, Brady, and Jonathan, and Greg and I will be on the pod after the game. Have a good night.
Hey, gonna play?
No.
No. He is making progress, though. He went through shoot around this morning.
I know you've been dealing with this now for almost 2 years, but this phase of the pandemic seems kind of unique with so many people testing positive. How have you tried to navigate, I guess, this part of this pandemic?
Yeah, you just try to stay solutions based, focus on what you can control, over communicate every part of it, because things are changing, and you do have to adapt to this. You can't just live in the problem. We are all fatigued by it. We are frustrated, and I think those emotions are fine. That's what makes us human. And there are a lot of different factors to this. So it's not as if there's one solution, and you're trying to keep a business going. You're trying to keep everybody healthy, keep everybody safe. You're trying to manage the unpredictable every single day. If anything, I think we're just that part of it has been normalized. The unpredictability of every single day. You just have to accept that that's what it's going to be like, for a while. And the whole league is adjusting to it. I commend everybody, for working together through all of this. I've said it before, there's not a playbook, that you can refer to on this. And it is a little bit different than last year, and it's different than the year before. But that's just where we are right now. And the most important thing is, can we keep everybody healthy, everybody safe? And, for the most part, from the information we've been gathering, those who are vaccinated have gotten a booster, and, are responsible, that you're mostly asymptomatic or minor symptoms if you do get it. And then hopefully, we haven't heard of anything, about whether people's families have been affected by it or friends. And so hopefully we can just keep that going. And then also, just keep the schedule going.
Coach, if there is a positive side to this at all, so many players are getting chances that would maybe have never gotten this opportunity in their life.
Yeah.
And I hear out there many times, well, the product is not good. I don't agree with that in terms of they're giving it 100% everywhere.
I agree.
I just wondered your thoughts on that, and knowing how difficult it is to get to this level, and having all these players participate for the first time, and maybe their only time in their life.
For those that say that, you're just so disconnected to the human side of this business, and that's a shame. All you have to do is read some articles about some of the players that have gotten an opportunity, how much it's meant to them, how emotional some of the players have been about this. And it's not only the players that have never been in the league yet that have had to go through the G League that are now getting opportunities. And that's opportunity to live out their dream, but also financially. These are great opportunities for these young players. But also guys like Brandon Knight, have been really banging on the door to try to, get back into the league, and is been battling, and trying to get healthy enough to be able to sustain. And he's been able to do that. He was fantastic for us in Sioux Falls. And then, he's getting a great opportunity in Dallas and making the most of it. And, we root for him. So I've been following it closely, and to see how emotional he was about getting that opportunity is just, transcends, just the normal business of what we do every day. It makes you, really want to root for guys like that.
And for you as a coach, you may have been, and other coaches are discovering things that you wouldn't have discovered or would have known by not playing all these players that maybe wouldn't have gotten this amount of time on the court.
Look, for us, we love what we do. And again, if we can just keep everybody safe and keep everybody healthy, well, we have an opportunity to compete and coach and be in a locker room and have a team like we have, even with some of the injuries or guys in and out of the lineup. We're extremely blessed, and we've had some amazing nights and games in the last month while all of this chaos has been going on. And to think of us not having that opportunity, that would be a real bummer.
We'll go via Zoom to Tim Reynolds. Go ahead.
Eric, reading the memo from yesterday from the league, are you hopeful that you'll get Kyle maybe sooner than later, or at least sooner than you first anticipated?
Yes, I am hopeful, but I also know, that until you, find out things for certain, not to live and die with that, those kind of decisions. But he is part of this, new category of either super minor symptoms or asymptomatic. And then it's just a matter of testing. And if you can get to a certain level, that to me, it just seems right that if the science is behind it and the safety of the players and everybody else around it are behind it, that you wouldn't need to necessarily be out 18 days like Caleb was, which was extremely frustrating. I felt the pain with Caleb. It was basically, he did have, minor symptoms for a day or two, but far less than a cold. And for him to be out, basically almost more than half a month for a guy like him, coming off his career best game, that's tough. So I do commend the league also for looking at all of these different cases, seeing how this potentially is different than last year. And this variant is potentially different. And if we can speed up the process of getting guys back into action, but doing it in a safe manner, I think that would be best for all parties.
All right, Coach. Thank you.
Thank you.
Want to advertise your business in a cost?
Everything for free on 5reasonsports.com. Spell that one out, FIVE, reasonsports.com. Get the latest from Brady Hawk and others. Brady will be back with us later in the week. We was at the game today. You can catch his tweets from the post-game press conference at Brady Hawk 305. Also, the great sponsors of the 5 Reasons Sports Network. I know some of you are upset at us about this, but we're going through with it. We're going to have like a mini watch party, not a full their winning streak. So it's City Cigar.
Get up.
Welcome to 5 on the Floor, a daily insider show on the Miami Heat and the NBA, featuring Ethan Skolnick, Greg Sylvander, and Alex Toledo, plus others from the 5 Reasons Sports Network.
Ethan Skolnick back on 5 on the Floor and back from FTX Arena. I took my daughter today, so I watched, but I didn't study quite the way that I usually do, which means that we're going to project ahead a little bit today. I've got Greg Sylvander. You can follow him at Greg Sylvander. I've got Alex Toledo. You can follow him at Tropical Blanket. And our floor plan is we're going to look at some of the unique combinations that Erik Spoelstra has had no choice but to use during this stretch in what, in my view, is a top 3 in the league Coach of the Year season. I know JB Bickerstaff just got the extension deserved in Cleveland. We'll see if that's sustained. And obviously, you've got Steve Kerr doing a great job, and out in, and Monty Williams out in the West. I don't think Frank Vogel's going to be in contention, but but Erik Spoelstra's done a terrific job. But basically what he's had to do, he's had to mix and match every night. It's just like, just give me 9 players I can use, any 9 players. So like today, Kyle Lowry goes out because he's in the protocols. PJ Tucker worked on the court before the game, but wasn't ready to go. Markieff Morris, I'm not supposed to say anything because he got angry at me on Twitter, but he was back out there again, draining 50-foot shots and seemed absolutely fine, but didn't play. Jimmy Butler returned today, and Caleb Martin returned. So they had 2 more pieces, and then didn't use Okpala, but used Haslam. So again, more combinations against what, let's just acknowledge, a G League team and Robin Lopez on the other side and Gary Harris. Okay, they didn't play a whole lot today, but they won the game. But more unique combinations. So like, for instance, Caleb Martin and Jimmy Butler playing the 4 and the 5 for a stretch. Like, is Caleb Martin... is that something you can go to, like as a backup stretch 4 when Bam Adebayo comes back? You take a look, obviously, more of Strus and Robinson playing together, more of Strus and Herro playing together before he was kicked out of the game. there are all these combinations, Greg. And so we're going to look at these. And I know there are some Heat fans who were concerned, and they're like, they went from not thinking they had enough players, and we were somewhat guilty of that. I was somewhat guilty of saying the depth wasn't good enough, to now it's like Jeff Trilly, one of our friends on Twitter, is like, I feel bad for the young guys when the vets come back. And my point is, you're never going to have 100% of your players this year at any point, whether it's COVID, injuries, or whatever. But it does give Spoelstra more options. So, Greg, I'll go to you. Of all the unique combinations that he's used, or the unique kind of position placement of a particular player, what are you most excited to see when everybody is back? Or most everybody's back?
That's a loaded question. So there's a couple different things. One, I am really interested to see how Spo integrates Max and Caleb when he has a full cast of characters, because I feel like those guys have been eating innings in places where there's other guys that are slotted to do some of those things. And I just think it's going to be a super interesting chess match there. I mean, I guess even Gabe to some degree behind Kyle will also get squeezed if you're thinking about it in those terms. But this is the beautiful thing, and you alluded to it, like, you need guys. This is the whole concern with this roster was we kept saying, just get to the playoffs, right? But like, you had to get to the playoffs and you had to be in a relatively good seed. You needed guys that you didn't know you could count on to step up. And literally there hasn't been anybody that has fallen flat on their face. Even KZ Okpala, when given a little bit extended minutes, he produced enough for them to get a couple victories here and there. Udonis has been better. So I would say that the number one thing, though, truthfully to me, and this is probably like counterintuitive because Max has been the most exciting. And Omer, obviously, when you have a big man that maybe just is a double-double machine waiting to happen, that can be intriguing. It's Gabe for me. Like, ultimately, to have another guy that you can count on defensively, but also that can at least get them organized enough to run any level of offense is something that they were missing behind Goran at times. And now they definitely are not missing it behind Kyle, and we were worried about that. So to me, I think the development of Gabe Vincent may be the most important part of all this.
Yeah, it's interesting you say that because I didn't think you were going to go there. I thought you might go with Caleb because we talked about how there wasn't really a true backup for Jimmy on this roster. Like Max Strus was kind of slotted in as that, but he's really more of Duncan Robinson's backup from a stylistic perspective. He's not as much Jimmy's back, but I know he does some things different than Duncan. We've cataloged these here on the show, but it's really Caleb who does some of those Jimmy things. We really haven't seen them play together. Like I was thinking about it today when they were getting those minutes at the 4 and the 5. Like, I mean, how many minutes have they actually played together this season? It can't be very much, right? Alex, I'll go to you. What jumps out to you? What is, I guess, most promising to you? And then what is something you think we could see when they have more of a complement of players?
Man, you like Leif said, that's a loaded question. Like, I think it's really hard to pick stuff here, but I think I agree with Leif that number one, Gabe is the most impressive out of everything we've seen. Even though it's a lot of positives, I feel the best about Gabe's development just because we've seen, like, not that he was a bad player or anything like that last season, but who he was last season to who he is right now, it's a pretty huge jump. That's what I'm going to say, right? Like, he's an all-around player. We've known that he could defend. And even though that he's kind of small, he makes up for it for just how aggressive he defends without fouling. I think, like Leif talked about there, he's pretty good at getting guys organized. He's good at setting guys up in the pick and roll now. He just looks a lot more confident getting into his shot. So I feel like he's got a lot of different ways that he can contribute now. And it's not all about the spot up shot. And also, you know, the catch and shoot is working out for him too. So I just feel like even when that part might come down a bit sometimes, even though I do think of him as a shooter, he's got all this other stuff he can bring to the team now. It's always a good thing to have more guys that you feel good about as ball handlers. But then as a team, it's like we talked about before the show, I feel good about all three of them when it comes to Strus, Caleb Martin, and Gabe. Like, I just think they're all good players, right? You guys already alluded to KZ, right? He didn't play today, but when he has been out there the past few games, he's not a detriment to the team. He looks pretty good. He looks energetic, even confident. They just kind of turned him into this like handoff big, the way they use him instead of keeping him planted in the corner. I think it's just got him a little bit more activated. And then you see Yurt out there. he had, I think, probably the best game of his career today. Not that the Magic are a great opponent, but he looks good, man. Like, he's just been a rebounding machine every time that he plays, and we know he's got a soft touch, and it's just kind of about putting everything together. I think he's gotten better as a role man. So it's just like everybody is standing out at the same time. But I think Gabe is the number one standout.
Yeah, it's interesting that you guys go with Gabe because, before the year, I think, Greg.
The gap isn't big, though.
But Greg, I felt like
True.
you didn't you weren't comfortable with Gabe. I felt like in the beginning of the season. And I felt I was a little bit more. I think we all were with Max. I don't think anybody kind of knew what we had with Caleb. Brady and I sort of identified it at that first scrimmage, like, wow, this looks like a back of the rotation player, which at the time seemed pretty damn good. And now, he had 28 the last time he played. He had 17 tonight. And I was saying before we came on that, like, it took him a while. Like, I felt like he was rusty, and he ended up the game 7 of 11.
Yeah.
And he had a block. And I guess let's focus on Caleb here for a second, because we'll pivot back to Gabe. And then after the break, I have a question, because just a big picture question about this as a developmental season for the Heat, where it kind of fits. Because I think you can start to make a case. This may be their best developmental season they've ever actually had, which is a pretty high bar here. But I think the thing with Caleb that is so promising is his confidence in the jumper. Because if he develops that, he is able to guard up. We've seen that. He's not afraid of guarding bigger players. He was handling the ball today a lot, bringing the ball up the floor. And we know they needed another ball handler without Lowry. And the Herro kind of took some of that today, which I thought Tyler played fine before the ejection, but I thought Tyler was trying too hard to be Kyle today. He did have the 8 assists, but there were times he passed on shots he typically takes. Yeah, but he couldn't even
hit heads.
He couldn't even get himself. He couldn't get any kind of a rhythm. Like, Tyler is a rhythm offensive player, and it felt again like he was overthinking today. He didn't play badly, but it felt like he was overthinking. And of course, there's the Duncan issue, which I swear 4 of those shots were in and out. But they were in and out, Greg. I know you're pointing at but they're in and out. And the crowd is like because I don't.
They're not helping.
The crowd. Well, they're not helping. But I'll say this: they were the biggest ovation of the night. Okay, more than any of the dunks was when Duncan made that first 3, because I think the crowd understands how important that is. They sense it. They're educated. I mean, Heat fans are a lot more educated than people give them credit for, okay? I mean, again, I sat in the stands today in the lower bowl and listened to fans around, and they were all, they all also took the Heat minus 8.5. So they were glad that Orlando sat on it at the end of the game. But it's interesting to me with the Duncan thing, because it does feel like Heat fans are they're frustrated with him, but they want to will him to success because they kind of feel like maybe they can help him get out of his own head. But back to Caleb for a second. See, I think that's one of the things we've seen that is sustainable when everybody's back. Because I can see scenarios when Bam is back, when you're playing against a smaller team.
And you size down.
Where you size down. And I think you could play Caleb next to Bam, and that gives you switched ability and
they're all interchangeable.
All interchangeable. And I think that may be one of the things. As much as I liked what I saw from Morris, it would not stun me if Caleb eats into some of the Morris minutes, even when Morris is healthy. And we have seen Markieff has lost minutes in the postseason before, just because you can get a little smaller, a little quicker. So I think that is one of the things that we can look at. I want to go to one of the others, though, the Gabe thing, because Lowry's out now, so Gabe's going to start. But, Alex, we saw Gabe and Kyle playing together, and there was a comfort level there. Like, I feel like that is sustainable going forward, which is also, we didn't think that was a combination we're going to see much of, but it does have a Van Vliet quality to it with the way that Gabe is playing right now.
Oh, yeah, for sure. And, look, I was wrong about that. Like, you've been saying that for a while there. And I just feel like you look at them visually and maybe it's a little small, and that's kind of why it bothers me. But it works out. Like, they have good chemistry together. Gabe is, like I said, he's taking a leap out there as a ball handler, so it really works together. And I just think he looks a lot more poised out there, even though he isn't, Lowry level point guard. He's doing a lot of playmaking out there when he's on the floor, whether he's playing with Lowry or someone else. So I just think like that combination has definitely worked. I think he can work well with other guys too. So I just think you can kind of plug him into whatever lineup you want to there. You feel great about him in any of these types of different lineups you're throwing out there, I think. And look, I think the same thing with Caleb, right? Like, I think as long as you have shooting in other positions as well. Like, but they pretty much always do at this point. So that's not even much of a worry to me. But I think Caleb is everything he's done is sustainable. You could throw him into a lot of these lineups because he's so good defensively, so active with the hands, and like he's getting these big scoring nights for you without even like doing it on ball most of the time. He's doing it as a cutter. He's doing it sometimes where like they run their play. He catches the ball in the corner and he just gets a guy with that little crossover, gets the baseline drive. Like he does it in a lot of different ways without like being a high usage player. So I'm just really interested to see how they use that going forward. And I feel like Spo knows what he has, and what he has is a whole lot of different things he can go to. Like I wouldn't be surprised if that Caleb at the 4 stuff is more of like it's like a matchup dependent type of thing. You know, another team goes really small, he throws that out there, but we could probably see that again.
Yeah, no, like Caleb has the athleticism. I don't think we all realized the team needed so badly. And when you see him,
athlete.
When you see him play with this team, you say, whoa, okay, that's that bounce that maybe not everyone has, that maybe we didn't realize that they needed. A couple things today that I thought were really good to see is that without Kyle to keep down to 13 turnovers. Like, I think that's really relevant, that like another, hat tip to Gabe for that. And then just overall, and we talked about Yurt early and Caleb has a part in this with the energy that he brings and stuff like that. The offensive rebounding advantage 20-8 today. Like that's the kind of stuff. Usually when the Heat shoot 29% from 3, they lose. Like our friend John Jablanca, I think is how you say his name, brought up that stat. When they shoot below the league average, they generally lose out all of those games. So to get the win today against Orlando, I just think it's a good sign considering no Kyle, considering no Bam.
All right, we're going to talk a little bit more about the bigs and also some sort of generalities here, how to put this into perspective. Before we do, tell you about a couple sponsors of the 5 Reasons Sports Network. PrizePicks.com. Use that code 5. That's daily fantasy. That's where you want to go for it. Of course, you can play the Dolphins-Saints game if you want. I would be playing Jalen Waddle over tomorrow night. I feel like Tua's got his security blanket back. So go to PrizePicks.com. Use the code 5, F-I-V. Of course, you can do it on all the NBA games as well. Make sure you deposit, too. You can't play if you don't deposit, and they will match your initial deposits. You may want to deposit a little bit more and just play a little bit as you go. Also, want to tell you about another of our sponsors, therapistpreferred.com. That's for premium CBD. Get 25% off. Use the code 5RSN, 5RSN for 20% off. And for all of your grooming products, cologne, deodorant, all that good stuff. And they even send you some free stuff occasionally you're not even expecting. Go to manscaped.com, manscaped.com. Use the code there as well, 5RSN. So Prize Picks, use the code 5, F-I-V-E. And for Manscaped, the Therapist Preferred, use the code 5RSN. I want to, you mentioned the offensive rebound, and we didn't talk a ton about Yurt today. And I feel like we should, because this is another of these, opportunities that's been created by absences. And, Akpala's gotten some of these minutes, as you mentioned, but Akpala didn't play today. He went with Haslam, and he went with Yurt as a starter again. You're not going to have C. Dedmon for a couple of weeks. There's still no Bam. Tucker's coming back. Morris is coming back. You would figure with Bam, Tucker, Morris, Dedmon, that Yurt goes back to being your 5th big. And Haslam goes to being your 6th big. And Akpala's your 7th big, I guess. But when you see the shooting touch, when you see the ball finding a guy consistently, and the mistakes seem to be fewer of late, I can see, Greg, a scenario where Heat fans are going to be saying, why don't we see Bam next to Yurt? Why don't we go bigger on occasion when Tucker is out? Whereas I'm maybe pushing more of the Caleb agenda here to play smaller, because that seems like a Spo thing. Could we see Omer with Bam? Could we see Omer a little bit more with Dedmon? Although that seems a little clunkier to me. Could you see Omer with Tucker, maybe even with Morris? I mean, could we just see Omer? I guess that's the question.
Yeah, no, it's a good question, because you talk about all these seasoned vets that have won championships. Like even Keefe, was on that roster, and Dedmon obviously is a veteran. I think that there's a path for Omer to getting minutes. I don't know that it would be late in the playoffs this year unless something really drastic changed injury wise. But I ultimately, like, if we're talking about like looking at this more macro level, him next to Bam is what they absolutely need to try, because if his shooting touch from the edges and then his ability to also rebound and stuff like that, like there's certain matchups I can think about, like what Milwaukee can trot out there, or or even what they faced against LA in the 2020 finals. Like they could have used a player like that can stretch the floor just enough, but still be productive with the rebounds and stuff like that, and not just come up empty on the stat sheet. So I really think that they have something there. I think that they were really smart to scoop him up when they did and just get him in the program. Nothing's going to happen, but every summer he's going to come back and look bigger and stronger. And he's got the skill level. So I think that it may not be a this year thing. And I can understand why Heat fans want to see that accelerated as fast as possible. But you're watching these guys blossom, and it takes a year. Like for Gabe, we saw it, even Max to some degree. It took a year for them to actually be counted upon and come through.
Yeah, for Duncan too. I mean, Duncan
exactly.
got a taste of it the first season and then not the second. So of all the combinations, let me ask you this, Alex. If Omer was to get minutes, who do you like him best next to in the front court?
That's tough, but I think I might go PJ or Markieff, actually. I mean, I haven't seen Markieff with him. That's like more like I wouldn't mind seeing him next to Markieff. I wouldn't mind seeing him next to Bam. I kind of don't want to see him next to Dedmon. I think you're toying a little bit too much with the slow bigs there, unless you're going to go with some sort of zone. Maybe that would be fun, having those guys there. But I just think Omer is one of those guys who, if that jumper is real, maybe he is somebody who you can kind of throw into that category I was talking about before, where like you can plug him into a lot of different types of lineups. That's the thing with him, though, and specifically with me when I think about Omer, is I'm a little bit skeptical on that jumper. Not that he can't shoot it, but for him to work with Bam, I'm thinking about the Myers, the Kelly role and what they played. And those guys were shooters. Like even though I was always higher, and I think most of us were higher on Kelly than Myers at the time, both of those guys are just good three-point shooters. I don't think Omer has showed it yet. I think like what he does in the mid-range is cool. I feel like he can hit an open three as a set shot, but I'm not there yet on putting him next to Bam a lot of minutes, but absolutely try it out. Like I just think him getting this playing time now, it's only happening because of the situation they're in. Same thing with UD, obviously, but Omer is taking advantage, and we knew that he could play because of the way that he was standing out at Summer League in his first year, and obviously because he scooped him up pretty early, like Leif said. So it's good to see him get accelerated now, but I just don't know how much more he's going to play because of how many guys they have. So it just depends on who's actually going to stay out. But the thing is, Bam's not going to be back for like another month or so. So he's going to be in there for a while.
Yeah, it's such a weird place that we're in right now, where we're talking about like having to shelve guys instead of the concern at the start of the season, which was, like, they have enough. And I can tell you, if you check out our website in the next couple of days, you'll see a T-shirt to that effect. All right, I got one question for these two guys. I want you to think about it. All right, is this their best developmental season? Don't answer it yet. Okay, just you're gonna have a minute here. Think back to previous Heat seasons, and obviously they've developed a ton of players. I'll go through a list when we come back from the break. But is this their best developmental season yet? Before we do, though, you want to develop, right? Your body, go to Intense Nutrition, okay? That's where you got to go. It's in Coral Springs. You're a budding athlete. You just want to fight cold and flu season and, you know, that other thing that's going around. Go out to Intense Nutrition. And they can also work with you on your pre and post workout regimens. Okay. They got superior quality, superior service. The Facebook page or the Instagram page are both Intense Nutrition. So check them out there. And also they'll give you 20% off everything but protein. If you mention 5 reasons, it's pretty much everything in the store. 20% off everything but protein in the store. So go to Intense Nutrition. Again, the phone number, and it's in Coral Springs, 954-775-0257. All right. I'm going to just top my head here. I'm going to give you a list of players that the Miami Heat have developed, okay? Rodney Magruder. These are all different years. Ike Austin, Udonis Haslem, Duncan Robinson, Mike James, Anthony Carter, Bruce Bowen, Malik Allen. I'm going back further. Deshaun Leonard, okay? Leif, did you jump in with a couple that I missed here?
Let's think through this. Josh Richardson was a 2nd-round pick, so that's a
Mhm.
developmental prospect. I would say Udonis Haslam needs to be considered on this
Got
list.
him already. He's number
okay,
one.
sorry.
Joel Anthony.
Joel Anthony is a great one. Anthony
Extras.
Carter is a great one. If you
Mhm.
didn't say Anthony Carter, he had a long career. Let's think through here. Hold on. We'll come up with more. Rasul Butler was
second
okay for a little bit there.
R.I.P.
Did you guys say Quran?
Well,
Quran was a first-round
That
pick.
doesn't-
Yeah,
that
I
doesn't-
can't take credit there.
But you still,
Hassan Whiteside, Tyler John. I'm sorry, we got to mention.
Thank you. No, you're good.
Hassan Whiteside, Tyler Johnson, right? That's another one. I mean,
so is there an age thing here, by the way? Like I was trying to think about that.
What do you mean an age thing? Like
It's really
us
like
or them?
if we found you off the scrap heap or you're a 2nd-round pick and you became a contributing player, you're on this list. Is
Right.
essentially
Okay,
like
so
where we're
that's what
trying
I
to
wanna-
catalog it. And I know where Ethan's going here, and like this is the beauty of this list. You can like put a couple of these guys together season over season and say, okay, like they got Josh and this other guy at the same year that they were developing them. But I know where you're going, Ethan, and I can't think of a season where they had this many guys. Like Duncan was an outlier. I mean, who else was on that team that went to the finals that you would consider a developmental guy?
that was really it. Derek Jones Jr. I guess.
Derek Jones Jr. Yeah, I guess he would.
Scrap heap player, although he didn't really contribute in the postseason. Duncan would be the primary one there. But on this roster, and again, if you go back to the Hardaway Zoe years, it was Vashon was a discarded 2nd-round pick, and Anthony Carter was the primary one. And for all the talk about AC's contract and everything, he won him a playoff series as a starter, against Detroit. He's a very productive player for them, who earned that contract, to be honest. Yes, Alex.
I'm confused why we can't include 1st-round picks here. We just finished watching games against the Magic, the Pistons, all these teams.
No,
have all these
but that's
first-round
not
picks.
the point, though.
To your point, just to address that quickly, the ability to take a Bam or a Tyler and not make them the customary end of the lottery pick that just is a semi-starter and actually make them as good as they are. Like not make them, I don't want to say that because it's the player who's driving that, but be able to accelerate that, I think needs to be recognized. But where Ethan's going is mining the gems.
Yeah, you see, that's the thing. I mean, it's the acorns, as our old friend Jeff Ireland with the Dolphins used to say. I don't usually quote Jeff Ireland, but I think, Alex, what you're getting at, that's taking a player with more and more raw material and developing him into a borderline star type player, which again, with what they've done with Bam and Tyler, where they have one all-star already and perhaps a second at the back end of the lottery, is tremendous work. Okay, it's better work than most teams do in the top 5. But I think, again, what we're getting at is the guy that nobody really was thinking of. I mean, we're talking about not just the Robinson on this team, but the Max Strus, the Gabe Vincent. I mean, the guys who typically might have had to go overseas, before he got there. I mean, Udonis Haslam did go overseas, for a year. He's here 20 years later, and he's giving them 8 and 5. And we need to do an entire podcast about why the hell he was not playing last year, because I still don't get it. I'm completely confused as I'm watching him in person. He belongs.
We need to have him on to talk about it.
I'll get him on to talk about it. We need to get Eric on to talk about it. That's who we need to get on to talk about it. I've got a pod idea with UD, which I've sent him a message on. I'm waiting on an answer. I want to have him on, and I want to go over every teammate he's had in his career, and the first thing that jumps to his mind. He's had like 200 teammates.
That would be so much fun.
Just that's it. Just name a guy and just that's it. Okay, you have to Cedric. No, he wouldn't play with Cedric Sabalas. Those would be for him. But any player who came out after. But again, back to the point. You're talking about on this team. You're talking about Gabe. I mean, I'm going to consider Caleb. He literally was thrown down on the street.
Yes.
Right, as a two-way. So you're talking about Gabe. You're talking about Caleb. You're talking about Max. All 3 of these guys. While
Yurtseven.
Yurt, while you still have Duncan and Udonis, who were 2 of those projects on the roster.
Tyler and Bam both getting better this season.
And Tyler on a rookie contract just to pile on.
I think it's their best developmental work. And I think if that's the case, then of all the things you give Eric Spoelstra credit for, the number one thing, and I remember this conversation with him a couple years after the Big 3, was he said, we're going to become more of a developmental organization. And this was really his work. Yes, Greg.
The one thing that I just want to say that this developmental work does is it awards them the ability to look at a first round draft pick and say to themselves, can we reproduce what we would get, the value we would get from this future first round pick via the way that this developmental farm system is now working? And that becomes that much more like they're inclined to include those in trades. So continue to watch for those first round picks to fly when available.
Well, I mean, why would you need them? And for the Heat executive who listens to this pod, if you're listening to this all the way to the end, okay, we will give you credit for developing players during the Big Three era, because I always get that comment. Because they did develop a couple of players, right? Mario Chalmers, to the degree that he contributed to championships, was a developmental player. Norris Cole, drafted at the end of the
Michael
first
Beasley.
round. Okay, we're going to end on that. That was not the Big Three era, Alex. So we'll give them credit for that.
They traded Michael Beasley a month after they signed LeBron, so I think it counts.
I guess it does. Bees, well, we want to bring Bees back. By the way, one other thing we want to say here. I lost my train of thought. Rio, trying to make a comeback. You want to call up? Come on, 5 on the floor. We'll bring you on.
Thank you for listening to the 5 on the Floor on the 5 Regional Sports Network.
All right, thank you for joining us in today's pregame show. A couple of news that just broke up. Max Strus is not going to be available tonight for the Miami Heat. Health and safety protocols have ruled him out from tonight's matchup. So we have the starter lineup. It's going to be different from the last game. We have Jimmy Butler, Caleb Martin going in for Max Strus, then Duncan Robinson, Gabe Vincent, and Omer Yurtseven. That's going to be their starting 5 for the Miami Heat, who plays the Washington Wizards tonight at FTX Arena. Brady Hawk is going to be there, and we want to invite you guys to also join us for the the halftime show on Twitter, Pace and Spaces, hosted by Sean, Tony, and Marco, and then for the post-up with our friends Royal and his crew right after the game here on the YouTube channel. Have a good night, enjoy the game, and thank you for being here. Remember to give it a thumbs up, a like, and to subscribe and turn on the notifications so you get a little notification there pop up every time we go live. Have a good night, enjoy the game, and we will see you later tonight here on the 5 Reasons YouTube channel.